DA in the GNU.
I can say with certainty that motion will not pass in the House. And if the DA decides to do that, they're essentially saying that they've walked out of the government of national unity. We know that they've been planning, or a particular group within the DA have been planning the matter of passing a motion of no confidence. We were expecting that was what was going to be spoken about. But we do want to say that should they take that course of action, the ANC very ready to make sure that we defend.
Meanwhile, the African National Congress Party Secretary General Fikile Mbalula has urged members of the Government of National Unity to put their differences aside. This as the Democratic Alliance Party has announced its withdrawal from the National Dialogue. Mbalula says the National Dialogue is not a political initiative, but a South African program on how to structure an inclusive and sustainable nation. Mbalula explains.
There will be differences in this Government of National Unity because we did not come here as like-minded political parties. Those things that unite us outweigh those that divide us. So it cannot be that once we differ on a single issue, including the removal of a deputy minister of an opposition in the GNU, then that party threatens with walkaway and threatens with a motion of no confidence. Government is not run in that way.
A delegation of Afrikaner leaders who visited the United States last week will arrive back in South Africa today. Last week, prominent members of the Afrikaans Leadership Network took a bilateral visit to the US to engage with White House officials and other stakeholders. The discussions, which were held under the theme An Afrikaner Perspective on US-South Africa Relations, sought to better explain the network's position on South African affairs. FF Plus leader Dr. Corneille Mulder, Dr. Theo de Jager of the Southern African Agri-Initiative and Dr. Gerard Papenfoos of NEASA will brief the media about their visit upon their arrival at OR Tambo International Airport. The briefing was expected to start this morning. This is FF Plus leader Dr. Corneille Mulder.
We will at the press conference give feedback with regard to the contents of some of our meetings as well as the way forward. We believe that we are in a position now where South Africa can do the necessary so that we can reset the international relations between the United States and South Africa in the best interest of all South Africans.
The Democratic Republic of Congo marks Independence Day today. The DRC celebrates 65 years of independence from Belgian colonial powers. DRC is the second largest nation in Africa and a reminder of the conflict that has driven the country since independence. This is also a time to place wreaths on the gravesites of loved ones who have died in civil wars and fighting. And finally, Greek Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis says Libya should cooperate with Greece and Europe to help halt a surge in migration flows from the North African state. Seaborne arrivals of migrants in Europe from the north of Africa, including war-torn Sudan and the Middle East, have spiked in recent months. Greece said it would deploy two frigates, and one more vessel off Libya's territorial waters to deter migrants from reaching its southern islands. Mitsotakis added that the EU's Migration Commissioner and ministers from Italy, Greece and Malta would travel to Libya early in July to discuss the issue. For any news stories you would like to share with us, please do send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa News, I'm Cholani Tulongwepe.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
In our sports headlines, today marks 5 days before the start of the 2024 World Cup of Nations in Morocco. And Iga Swiatek take a swipe at the tennis calendar that tempers with their world rankings. I'll be back with these and other stories at the bottom of the hour.
Africa Update with Lulu Gaboo, 12 to 1 p.m. Central African Time.
Well, thank you to Jolani Tulongwepe with our news update and Fikile Lungwati with our sports headlines. It is 12:07 Central African Time and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa on DSTV's audio bouquet channel 802, on OpenView channel 628 and on www.channelafrica.co.za, as well as on the SABC Plus app, available on the Apple and Google Play stores. And join us in conversation on our social media platforms. That's on X, Instagram, and subscribe on YouTube at Channel Africa 1. On Facebook at Channel Africa, you can also send us your comments and voice notes to +2763 as 406 9126 #Africa Update, and let us know which country you're in. And if you have any stories that you'd like us to highlight or to focus on, send us an email. It is newsroom@channelafrica.co.za, or give us a call on +2711 714 4459. And today on #Africa Update Us, the question is, the Democratic Republic of Congo is observing 65 years of independence. What words of encouragement do you want to give the Congolese people with the observation of 65 years of independence? What words of encouragement do you have for the Congolese people? And that you can send your views and your comments on our social media platforms, and that is #Africa Update Us.
Africa Update with Lulu Gaboo, 12 to 1 p.m. Central African Time.
We go to our top story in terms of what is happening across the world. We look at a story in Malawi where the police service and the country's defense force has been accused of failing to carry out their duties to protect fellow citizens. This was expressed by the United States Embassy in Malawi's charge d'affaires, Amy Diaz, following attacks by a group of armed assailants on demonstrators on Thursday. Malawi's Human Rights Commission demanded an explanation from the Malawi Police Service over its inaction to the violence in Lilongwe. Joining us to discuss this is Malawi Human Rights Commission Chief Executive Officer Habiba Osman. Habiba, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us on Africa Update.
Thank you very much, for having me this afternoon.
Now, you've asked the police for a response last week. Have they responded as yet?
No, as we speak right now, we haven't received any update from the police, and the commission was expecting that at least we would have an update for them, or perhaps we could have seen, as they normally do, issue a statement in the papers to state specifically what they're doing in terms of the outcries that have come from various sectors. As we speak, there are so many statements that keep on coming out, some from election networks, because as you know, less than 80 days from now, we'll be having the elections. So we know that I think some of the organizations, particularly the ones that are concerned with elections, are also bringing out these statements in line of what happened last week, but also I think perhaps also to get guarantees on the issues of protecting citizens from mob violence, which is really growing, as you had seen the images last week from Malawi.
Now, take us through very briefly what exactly happened.
Okay, so perhaps maybe let me say that for us, the Commission, we released the statement last week because we note that, the latest incident has followed a disturbing pattern. For example, in November of last year, 2024, there were planned demonstrations against the Malawi Electoral Commission, which were also violently blocked by panga knife-wielding individuals in Lilongwe. Similarly, it also happened on 19th March this year, where an organized demonstration by concerned citizens, concerned civil servants at Kamuzu Memorial Tower was also disrupted by armed attackers, resulting in injuries to at least 2 individuals. So for us, we note that the latest incident is one that was also being organized by human rights activists and defenders. And at this peaceful rally, there was the Malawi Defense Force as well as the Malawi Police Service. I'm not very sure why the MDF were there, because we know that, of course, this has been a forte of the police. But I guess because of the disruptions that have happened in the past, where we're seeing panga knives, folks coming in to attack people, to disrupt demonstrations, I'm thinking that the army was also deployed for the same issue. So what happened last week was that, this particular person was actually being attacked while the Malawi Police Service officials, officers, and MDF soldiers were there actually looking. And the videos are there, the ones that are circulating. So this is what happened last week, where the panga knife-wielding individuals in Lilongwe attacked human rights defenders. And one of the organizers of the peaceful demonstrations was hacked badly on the day.
Now, how rife is the situation of human rights abuses in Malawi? And what is government's response to, for lack of a better word, to the crisis that the citizens are facing?
Well, I would say that for the Malawi Human Rights Commission, we actually engaged with the police around May, because we were concerned that there hasn't been any concrete actions coming up from the police, particularly with the fact that when the hackers come out, like the past 3 demonstrations, there has not been anyone who's been held accountable. There hasn't been anyone who's been arrested or taken to task. And so we are worried that there's a lot of impunity that is taking place. But this latest incident is more concerning because the attacks were happening while the police were there and the soldiers were there, and the attackers were not apprehended at all while this guy was being hacked. So the only response that we've now received is from the head of state, Dr. Lazarus Chakwera, who has given out a strong statement condemning the acts, but also asking the Malawi Police Service through the Minister of Homeland Security and others to submit reports to him, because as you know, our president has been out, he's in Nigeria. So that statement was released in Nigeria where he's demanded reports, investigation reports on the same. Where civil society organizations, mostly we've seen, yes, they've demanded an investigation into these recent attacks, but mostly they are calling also for the resignation of the Inspector General and some of the ministers who are heading the important ministries.
All right, Habib, we are going to have to leave it here for today. Thank you for joining us on Africa Update.
Thank you very much.
That's Malawi Human Rights Commission Chief Executive Officer Habiba Osman joining us on the line.
Africa Update with Lulu Gaboo, 12 to 1 p.m. Central African Time.
Uganda's President Yoweri Museveni has announced he intends to contest in next year's presidential election, potentially extending his rule in the East African country to nearly half a century. In a post on the X platform, he expressed his interest in running for the position of a presidential flag bearer for his National Resistance Movement party. Museveni seized power in 1986 after a 5-year civil war and has ruled ever since. Now, the NRM has altered the constitution twice to remove terms and age limits, clearing the way for Museveni to extend his tenure. Ugandans are due to vote in January to choose a President and members of Parliament. And to discuss this further, we are joined by our correspondent in Uganda, Michael Arareng. Mike, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us on Africa Update.
Thank you very much, Lulu.
Now, Mike, what has the reaction been like from just the citizens of the country? Are they happy? What's the mood on the ground?
Well, I also attended actually the ceremony which took place in Kampala. It was a colorful occasion held at the NRM Secretariat Chadondo Road in the upscale residential area of Nakasero in the capital city, Kampala. Thousands and thousands of the ruling party supporters wearing yellow attires thronged the roads leading to the National Resistance Movement headquarters to witness President Museveni picking the nomination forms as he confirmed bid to extend his nearly 40-year rule. At the age of 80, President Yoweri Museveni looked energetic and assured his supporters that he is ready to lead the country for another 5-year term, and he pleaded to ensure economic growth from today's GDP of $66 billion to $500 billion US dollars within the next 5 years. His focus right now is on the parish development model, which is intended to enrich Ugandans. He has been touring all districts in the countries. There are about 155 districts to encourage Ugandans to utilize their land by growing cash crops like coffee, maize, and also engage in poultry and fish farming. Ugandans in each parish are given working capital to embrace the parish development model. So many Ugandans I talk to on the streets in Kampala, they say that they support actually President Museveni bid for the presidency in 2026.
And let's talk about his legacy as a leader. How would you describe it?
Well, he has performed better than the rest of the presidents here in the country. He has been in power for the last 39 years. I remember by that time I was still a young person when he actually overthrew the regime of the former President General Tito Okello Lutwa. By that time I was still a young person. I was still 29 years old. But he has been in power since that time, since 1986. That was on 26 January until today. But he has performed better than the rest of the presidents in terms of economics, in terms of security, and of course he has tried his level best to ensure that Ugandans are actually empowered to do so many activities. So he is one of the greatest leaders I can say.
Now, Uganda's main opposition party has also its leader, Bobby Wine, saying that he would run in the upcoming presidential elections. They've confirmed that, pitting the popular musician turned politician against President Yoweri Museveni. Are there any other presidential candidates?
So far, those are the only two candidates who are known, but we also expect the leader of the Democratic Party, which is in alliance with the ruling party, also Robert Mao is also willing to vie for the presidential seat, but up to now he hasn't announced yet. But there are also other individuals who are yet to announce their bid for the presidency. So we are still waiting. But so far, the two candidates, President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni and Robert Kyagulanyi, popularly known as Bobby Wine, so far are the ones who are announced officially.
Now, with elections expected to take place, or planned rather, for next year in January, that's 2026 in January, has campaigning begun?
Well, when we talk about the roadmap before the elections, right now campaigns are not yet have not yet commenced, but they will start around October. That is when they officially commence, and for about 3 months, the candidates will be actually looking for votes. They will be visiting all the districts here in Uganda to make sure that they get votes from the ordinary Ugandans. So by January, end of January, that's when the elections will be held for both the presidential and also members of parliament, and also councillors will be elected on the same week, and the last one will be the presidential election. So we are still yet waiting for that. And this time around, actually, the government has put in a lot of money to finance the election process. So everything is ready, and we are just waiting for the election day.
Well, Mike, thank you so much for joining us on Africa there for today.
Thank you very much.
That's our correspondent in Uganda, Mike Arareng, joining us on the line. It is 22 after 12 Central African Time.
Are you fluent in French, Chinyanja, Portuguese, and Kiswahili? Are you passionate about radio? And are you looking to work in South Africa? Do you have papers that qualify you to work in South Africa? In that case, we might have an opportunity for you to work for Channel Africa. Send us your CV and demo at newsroom@channelafrica.co.za. Remember, if you don't hear from us within 14 days, it means you have not made it or you have not been selected. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Africa Update with Lulu Gaboo, 12 to 1 p.m. Central African Time.
Dozens of pro-Palestinian activists established a protest camp outside the German parliament, the Bundestag, in Berlin on Sunday, opposing the government's backing of a United Nations Security Council resolution in support of Israel and its continued arms exports to Jerusalem. The demonstrators accused the German government and parliament of being complicit in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and are demanding an end to weapons deliveries to Israel, as well as a stop to what they call the criminalization of the Palestinian solidarity movement. Our Channel Africa's reporter Michael Mbewe is in Berlin. This report.
The Berlin camp, known to many as Occupy Against Occupation, began on April 8, coinciding with the start of International Court of Justice hearings in Nicaragua's case against Germany for providing military aid to Israel, with erected tents, hanging banners and placards that reads, "Stop Arms Delivery," criticism of apartheid, genocide is not anti-Semitism, and no to silence resolution. The protesters showed resistance and resilience while being watched by German police. The idea is to draw attention to Germany's complicity and active enabling of the Israel genocide in Gaza. Channel Africa spoke to the activists, beginning with the movement organizer Moad from Lebanon. For security reasons, their surnames are withheld.
First, this is the third camp we do here. We did one in April last year. Was going with the time that Germany was in the ICJ against, for Nicaraguan case. But this camp specifically, the third one, is because we felt for 2 years almost we're going into demonstrations and no politicians, even the polls are saying that even the German people are not supporting the genocide, and they're not supporting how Germany is acting and being complicit in the genocide, but nothing is happening. So we thought, as an initiative that went also with the March to Gaza and everything, to build this momentum and give people, because there is a public shift, and we wanted to be here in front of those genocidal parliament of Germany, and also to connect to people, to bring them in and talk about it, because when they fail to do the job that they should do, so it's time for us, for people to rise.
He says many other formations are actively supporting the cause, but raised the concern over Germany's blind eye on international law and its false display of guilt emanating from the Holocaust massacre.
That's why there are a lot of initiatives like the March to Gaza, the Freedom Flotilla, the Samud Convoy from Tunisia, and a lot of other countries, especially like South Africa, they're trying to help with that. But yes, it shows you first that this didn't start at October 7. This is the Zionist project. It's a European colonial project that is in the heart of the Middle East, and they will prefer actually fall and be against and not upholding international law just to save it. Especially in Germany, they have a lot about this guilt with the Holocaust. I don't know how you commit a genocide and you think we will resolve your guilt by supporting another one.
Operating under constant police repression, Moad says their movement is growing despite the fact.
It has been very steady. We in Berlin were facing a lot of repression in Germany, banning groups, arresting people for simply saying from the river to the sea. But we are strong. This repression is only making us stronger. We're growing more. Just last week we had over 60,000 people in a protest here in Berlin, and we will keep going. There's no other way to do it.
In solidarity with protesters, Esther is a German citizen who said their tax money is contributing to the continued relentless killing in Gaza.
I think German citizens do have a lot of reasons to be protesting their government right now, because their government is the second biggest deliverer of weapons to Israel. So whether they want to be or not, Germans tax dollars are actively killing people in Gaza, because that is what the German government is using to finance like the weapons they're and like the weapon parts they're supporting the IDF with.
Additionally, Esther says despite the differences there are, as humans, we uphold a moral duty of showing our humanity.
Even if that weren't the case, like, you have like a moral duty as a human being to oppose these things. And I don't know, especially in countries that are sort of directly involved, you have to be active and loud and not, I don't know, people can't let their governments get away with anything they want. And I feel like, governments should serve their people, and people have a duty to sort of hold their, hold their governments on like the right course. If that makes any sense.
The movement has reached far borders, including the United States of America. We spoke to Brandon, an American citizen residing in Berlin, who joined the protest.
I think of myself less of being here as an American and more as a citizen of the world, but also as a resident of Berlin. I've lived here for 6 years, and I would say our goal with the camp is to raise awareness and reach the German people more, all the German people, and despite the fact that the German people overwhelmingly oppose arms shipments to Israel, most of them are very unaware of what's happening in Palestine. The German media is almost criminal in the way that they lie about things. Even in comparison to Hebrew language media would show that the German media is incredibly out of touch with the facts in a way that no other country seems to be. So the German people are very misinformed, the trust in the media here is very low, and we're just trying to raise awareness and get people to understand the role that Germany plays as the number 2 supporter of the State of Israel and of the IDF right after the United States of America.
Michael Mbewe, Channel Africa News, Berlin, Germany.
Today we ask on hashtag Africa Updates. The Democratic Republic of Congo is observing 65 years of independence. What words of encouragement do you want to give the Congolese people? Send us your views or your thoughts or your words or congratulatory messages on all our social media platforms. That's on X, Instagram, or subscribe to YouTube or at Channel Africa 1 on Facebook at Channel Africa. You can also send us your comments and voice notes to +2763 as 406 9126 hashtag Africa Update, and let us know which country you're in. And the question again is, what words of encouragement do you want to give the Congolese of people? The Democratic Republic of Congo is observing 65 years of independence. Hashtag Africa Update us.
Africa Update with Lulu Gaboo, 12 to 1 p.m. Central African Time.
It is 12:30 Central African Time, and our news headlines up next with Jalani Tulo.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Lulu. Good afternoon. Making headlines, the African National Congress Party in South Africa says any possible motion of no confidence by the Democratic Alliance Party against President Cyril Ramaphosa will be deemed as the DA's walkout from the government of national unity. A delegation of Afrikaner leaders who visited the US last week will arrive back in South Africa today. Last week, prominent members of the Afrikaans Leadership Network took a bilateral visit to the US to engage with White House officials and other stakeholders. And finally, fire crews in the US state of Idaho have come under attack while fighting a fire on a mountainside, leaving 2 of them dead. I will have details on these and other stories at 1 o'clock.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Jalani Tulongwepe, and we say good afternoon to Figile Lungwati with our sports update.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Good afternoon, Lulu. We begin with football news. Today marks 5 days before the start of the 2024 Women's Africa Cup of Nations, the WAFCON, in Morocco. The tournament runs from the 5th to the 26th of July. South Africa are the defending champions, having won their maiden title in 2022 in Morocco. Banyana goalkeeper Kaylin Swart says they are ready to defend their title.
Yeah, it's so crazy to think that we just a couple days away from, kickoff. But we're excited. I know, sometimes the environment and, the weather and how hot it is. I don't think we've realized how hot it is, even though 2022 we were here. But no, I think we're all excited. We're ready. Now it's just, dotting the I's and just trying to unite as players.
And South African Football Association SAFA President Danny Jordaan has continued to claim that he is a victim of a sustained media campaign after a motion to suspend him failed to materialize at the SAFA Congress in Sandton in Johannesburg. Building up to the highly anticipated Congress, it had been widely reported that Jordaan was going to face a motion of no confidence over his involvement in a fraud and corruption case. After the step-aside motion, which was later withdrawn by the 4 disgruntled SAFA regions, Jordaan did not hold back in what he called a campaign against his name.
What the members recognize that there are 3 publications in the country out of more than 300 which consistently over the last year has beat the same drum and still went to beat it this morning. Nothing happened here. We had a successful Congress. We had dealt with all the reports. We had debates, and SAFA is intact. But if you read those 3 newspapers, you will see a different picture is generated. And we must just ask why? Why?
4 SAFA regions, Francis Bart, Dr. Kenneth Kaunda, Joe Gabi, and Uthugela, had called for the immediate provisional suspension of Jordaan and Chief Financial Officer CFO Groni Hluyo due to their arrest and alleged involvement in fraud and corruption. Jordaan says the case against him has no basis as the 3 theft charges against him and Hluyo have already been withdrawn in court.
Of the matters that's in the court, 3 matters that have already been withdrawn. And you must go and see what it relates to. It relates to the very issues that you raise. It doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. They went to tell the Hawks that the payment to SAFA President's Hotel is a payment to SAFA President. It's false. It's wrong. But that drum, you are still beating it.
And finally, with tennis news, Iga Swiatek criticized the relentless tennis calendar, with the former world number 1 saying that players should not be forced to compete in more than 20 tournaments a year to maintain their rankings. Now ranked 4th in the world, Swiatek described being trapped in a system where she had to choose between representing her country and focusing on herself after she reluctantly skipped Poland's Billie Jean King Cup qualifier in April. The 11th month grind has been one of the cornerstones of the lawsuits filed by Professional Tennis Players Association against the sports governing bodies in March, after their union described it as unsustainable. Swiatek is the 8th seed at Wimbledon this year, and she faces Polina Kudermetova in the first round on Tuesday. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, please do send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. This is Channel Africa Sport with me, Figile Lungwati.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective. Her name is Puleng Mulibati, and she's on Tech Africa.
Leading the tech conversation every single Sunday on Channel Africa.
Robotic process automation, just from a definitive perspective, is a software that emulates human activity for us to be able to remove mundane, repetitive tasks and build efficiency. That's what it means from a definitive perspective. Now, where exactly has this been reused, or has people seen this or familiar with? Now, you would have seen probably in the automotive industry these big robots that are moving large objects and assembling them. And it's generally to assist the particular production process to be more efficient, and also to be able to avoid any injuries from human activity, to be able to lift these heavy objects that can cause harm.
One of the key findings I think that stands out for me is that developing market economies and people are using AI much more than developed market economies, which I thought was quite surprising. In fact, in South Africa, amongst the people we surveyed, 91% report using generative AI for their work.
Tech Africa every Sunday, 9 till 12 noon, Central African Time. Are you fluent in French, Chinyanja, Portuguese, and Kiswahili? Are you passionate about radio? And are you looking to work in South Africa? Do you have papers that qualify you to work in South Africa? In that case, we might have an opportunity for you to work for Channel Africa. Send us your CV and demo at newsroom@co.za. Remember, if you don't hear from us within 14 days, it means you have not made it or you have not been selected. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Africa Update with Lulu Gaboo, 12 to 1 p.m. Central African Time.
It is 12:37 Central African Time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. Thank you to Figile Lingwati with our sports update, and continue with us on our social media platforms. That's on X, Instagram, and subscribe on YouTube at Channel Africa 1, on Facebook at Channel Africa. You can also send us your comments and voice notes to +2763 at 406 9126 #Africa Update, and let us know which country you're in. And if you have any stories that you'd like us to highlight or to focus on, send us an email. It is newsroom@channelafrica.co.za, or give us a call on +2711 714 4459. Up next, our business news with Wundle Hedbush.
Business news on Channel Africa, the African perspective.
Thanks, Lulu, and a very good afternoon to our listeners. In our top business story at this hour, 2 former executives of the South African state rail company Transnet are appearing in the Palm Ridge Magistrates Court in Ekurhuleni after handing themselves over to police this morning. Their appearance is linked to an alleged fraudulent $5 million locomotive tender. In 2012, Transnet went on a tender for the acquisition of the more than 1,000 locomotives deal. The executives are charged in connection with an irregular payment of $5 million to Trillion Asset Management for organizing a $1.6 billion loan to help buy locomotives. It's alleged it was a double payment, as Transnet had already paid another transaction advisory firm, Regiments. Trillion allegedly did nothing to earn the fee but invoiced Transnet. Disgruntled Metro bus commuters believe the pay-per-kilometre system will be expensive and unaffordable. Metrobus says the newly introduced system, which comes into effect tomorrow, will see commuters pay only for the distance they've travelled. The Johannesburg Bus Company believes the system is fair and that commuters were consulted on it. Egypt's economy grew by 4.77% in the third quarter of its 2024-2025 fiscal year, up from 2.2% in the same quarter a year earlier, as manufacturing activity recovered. The fiscal year runs from July to June. Manufacturing activity grew by 16.3% in the third quarter, recovering from a 3.9% decline in the same quarter of the previous financial year. Oil and natural gas extraction continued to decline, contracting by 10.38%. Moving further afield, U.S. senators have been debating a contentious tax and spending bill late into the night. Democrats, who are fiercely opposed to the legislation, are trying to delay a final vote on the bill. U.S. President Donald Trump is keen to sign it into law by the 4th of July public holiday. Few Republicans have spoken so far, while the Democrats have repeatedly denounced the bill, particularly for cutting health care coverage for millions of poor Americans. The Senate Minority Leader, Democrat Chuck Schumer, said the bill would inflate the already vast national debt of the United States.
Republicans are about to pass the single most expensive bill in U.S. history to give tax breaks to billionaires while taking away Medicaid, SNAP benefits, and good-paying jobs for millions of people. CBO just this morning said it will explode the debt by $3.3 trillion.
Canada has announced the scrapping of a digital tax service hours before it was due to take effect. On Friday, U.S. President Donald Trump threatened to end trade talks with Ottawa and impose new tariffs because of the planned tax. The BBC's Ian McWilliam has the details.
The Canadian Department of Finance said in a statement that the digital services tax would be rescinded in anticipation of a comprehensive trade arrangement with the United States. The planned tax would have hit major U.S. tech companies, including Amazon, Meta and Apple. Ottawa said it was introduced because large technology companies operating in Canada would otherwise not pay tax on revenues generated there. President Trump's threatened new tariffs, however, would have thrown US-Canada trade into chaos again after months of relative calm.
Now take a look at the indicators this afternoon. $1 in Nigeria is trading at 1,000 naira 541. In Botswana, it's 13 pula 29. Kenya, the dollar is trading at 128 shilling 53. And in Zambia, it's 23 kwacha 65. Moving to the BRICS countries, $1 in Brazil is trading at 5 rial 48. Russia, 78 rubles 43. In India, it's 85 rupees 41. China, 7 yuan 17. And South Africa, $1 is trading at 17 rand 80 cents at this hour. $1 is trading at 72 pence to the British pound and 85 to the euro. Looking at commodities, gold is trading at $3,285 and platinum at $1,365 per ounce, while Brent crude oil is at $66.74 a barrel. And those are your business news. For any business stories you'd like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business, I am Bontle Headbush.
Business News on Channel Africa. The African Perspective. Africa Update on Channel Africa.
Oh, thank you to Buntle Headbush with our business news. It is 12:43 Central African time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. The signing of a U.S. brokered peace agreement between the Democratic Republic of Congo and Rwanda has been met with mixed reactions among Congolese citizens, with some expressing support for the deal while others are opposed to it. Now, the agreement was signed in the United States capital, Washington, D.C. on Friday. Chris Sokamringa has more.
The U.S. Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, presided over the signing of the peace agreement by the Congolese Foreign Minister, Therese Kaikwamba Wagner, and her Rwandan counterpart, Olivier Ndungungirihe. It calls on both countries to cease hostilities, stop supporting armed groups, and respect each other's territorial integrity. The deal also includes the creation of a framework for economic cooperation in the mining and tourism sectors for the DRC and Rwanda. The DRC has long accused Rwanda of backing the M23 rebels in order to plunder its minerals. But Rwandan authorities have denied the charge and accused the DRC of backing a militia of ethnic Hutus who seek to destabilize their country. For some Congolese, the deal has raised hopes of ending the M23 conflict that has left thousands of people dead and displaced millions of others since late 2021. But others are pessimistic, arguing that the deal focuses more on the geopolitical, security, and economic interests of Rwanda and the US as opposed to the protection of Congolese civilians. The US government is set to sign a separate deal with the DRC that will grant American firms access to the DRC's strategic minerals. Previous efforts to end the long-running war in the DRC have failed. Many are hoping the US brokered deal will bring about lasting peace. Chris Ochamringa, SABC News, Kinshasa.
It is 12:45 Central African time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. Today, the Democratic Republic of Congo is celebrating its 65 years of independence from Belgian colonial powers. And to speak to us on this, we are joined on the line by our correspondent in the DRC, Jimmy Shukrani. Jimmy, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us on Africa Update.
Thank you so much.
Jimmy, I'm not sure whether you're a bit far from the mic, but you're not as audible as we'd like. Can you hear us?
I hear you. Good afternoon. Thank you.
Yes, that's much better. Now, Jimmy, what are the plans for today? And what are the citizens of the DRC saying about this day, a day of independence, with a civil war that is ongoing in the eastern parts of the country?
Yes, thank you. The president of the DRC have just talking about this 6/5 independence, And this morning he was just talking about this. And according to Felix Tshisekedi, the president of DRC, this is going just to rebuild a hope of peace in the eastern part of the DRC, the part of the DRC which is celebrating this 65 and the independence of the DRC. And the people have just take a decision of just accompanying the authorities in order to celebrate. So this is celebrating here in Goma and the part of the DRC in general. It's celebrated on high tension where there is wars, just which are observed in some areas of the country. But the M23 also is trying to celebrate this independence right now. Where I'm talking with you, there is the M23 leaders are celebrating this at Samoa with the people, and they will build a tree, which it will be a tree of hope and peace. And this is the opposition with the DRC's government, who is talking about the conflict in the eastern part of the DRC. But according to people, this is going to show the whole world what is to show at least what is happening in the part of the DRC, and they are calling to the part which are in conflict to seek a solution in order to celebrate a good independence.
Now, Jimmy, former President Joseph Kabila has been visiting some of the areas in the eastern DRC. Is he in the east today, and how has he been received?
Yes, of course. This 65th independence of DRC is celebrating where the former President Joseph Kabila is in the eastern DRC. He began by Goma, the capital of the North Kivu. So now is keeping with the consultation of some social consciences in Bukavu, the capital of South Kivu. And Joseph Kabila didn't say anything since the morning. Only I saw on some social medias used by his political party, PPRD, which they are wishing to hold Congolese a good Independence Day celebration. But Joseph Kabila, everywhere in the country they are celebrating the independence, Joseph Kabila is keeping with consultation. Now he's trying to consult some civil societies in Bukavu, as he began with the feminine COPEC and others. Now he's keeping with consultation, and he didn't say anything about this 65th independence of the DRC. But in Goma, the Corneille Nanga, the coordination of the IFM 23, is celebrating right now with the people. And this is happening where some areas they are recording some conflict, like in Uvira in the South Kivu and Walikale in the North Kivu. Joseph Kabila is keeping it quiet.
Jimmy, because of time, I have to ask you, just in wrapping up very briefly, just following the signing of the U.S. broker deal between the DRC and Rwanda, this peace agreement, how are the people feeling on the ground? What's the reaction to this? And what in terms of the parties that are involved, will this hold?
Some of them they are expecting the restoring of relation between DRC and Rwanda. Others they are expecting that maybe this is gonna help just to put end at the conflict. But others they are analysis like this is the source of insecurity where the government of Kinshasa is trying to sign in a peace agreement without involve the opposition, the political opposition, and without involve even the M23 leaders, which are on high concerning by this situation, by this conflict. So a part of people are expecting maybe this is going to be restoring the relation between two countries, but without any result, positive results on the ground, where they are, of course, recover the peace and the wars. But the M23 until now is rejected. He said they don't not concerned by this peace agreement which have been signed between the DRC and the government of Rwanda, which have been on the people, according to people here in the DRC, there is a part of the solution, but is not sufficient when there is not a national dialogue between opposition and other political classes, even if the social society.
All right, Jimmy, we are going to leave it there. Thank you so much for joining us on Africa Update. That's our correspondent in the DRC, Jimmy Shukrani, joining us on the line. It is 12:52 Central African Time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa.
Africa Update with Lulu Gaboo, 12 to 1 p.m. Central African Time.
Prime Stars and the Youth Start Foundation in South Africa have initiated a program called What About the Boys, with the hope that it will change the narrative of how real men are currently portrayed in society. The program is also aimed at addressing gender-based violence by encouraging boys to make better choices at an early age. What About the Boys uses edutainment as a tool for social impact. It seeks to address the overlooked crisis affecting boy children across rural, semi-urban and urban contexts. Sisi Sekhalo has more.
According to Youth Start Foundation, with prior initiatives being focused on the girl, the plight of the boy child remained largely in the shadows. What About the Boys emerged to fill the gap. A distinctive feature of What About the Boys initiative is its integration of film as both a learning tool and emotional catalyst. Central to the intervention is a locally produced film designed to mirror real-life struggles, pressures and internal conflicts facing adolescent boys in South Africa. By situating the learning experience in a cinema environment, the program creates a moment of immersion where boys can confront issues of masculinity, violence, trauma and emotional suppression through characters who reflect their own realities. Over months, boy children are mentored and shaped into becoming good members of society. General Manager at Youth Start Foundation, Refilo Mohali, says the program is, among others, trying to change the narrative of what a good man looks like.
It goes back to societal norms and how we raise our boy child. And I touched on it earlier. I said that we tell boys that they have to be tough, they have to be strong, they have to be domineering, that women are sexual objects. And see that in society, the men that are praised, the men that are called real men, quote unquote, I'll use that term, that are revered in society are the ones that are badly behaved. They are the ones, that are trying to, act like they've got many women at their side. They are the ones that always are splashing money on alcohol, driving fancy cars. And that is the wrong example that is being shared to our young boys. So our young boys actually are looking for role models, and we have good role models and we have bad role models. And we know that South Africa has been dubbed a fatherless nation. What we are trying to do is to show young boys that it is not cool, it is not good to be what society terms a real man and fit into that box.
He's optimistic that in a few years, South Africa will be telling a different story about its men.
You're actually asking a very important question, because that is actually one of our findings for that we have put out in our 3-year impact report as to where we want the program to go. Because we have seen that we need to emphasize how much we include local CDOs, so local community-based organizations that work in specific townships. We want to empower them. We want to give them content so that we can elongate or rather spend more time with our boys. We want to include mothers and fathers. We want to actually empower men to be able to mentor boys, even if they are not biological fathers. They can also still do social fathering. because every single man is being watched by a boy somewhere. So we're going to be creating content for mothers and fathers, anyone with a vested interest in a young boy's life, to empower them to raise these young boys, because we can't do it alone.
Petun Dlovu, now a business development coordinator at Youthstart, went through the program when he was still in school.
And that report by Sisi Sekhalo. And we say a happy Monday to Tebohole Kuleni. How are you today?
Happy Monday. I'm fantastic, Lulu. How are you doing? It's the last day.
It's the last day of June.
So how are you feeling about that?
It's cold. It's getting colder. It's getting colder. Yeah. So for me, I can't wait for the season to, make its way out.
100%. There are very few people who enjoy winter, right? And they actually say they enjoy winter. I'm not one of them.
No.
I'm not. I was at a cabin this weekend. I was sleeping at an attic.
Okay.
And it was so cold the whole night. I don't think I slept properly. There's a fireplace there, but the fire ran out, so you constantly had to go down and stoke the fire. So winter must depart immediately.
Winter, there's only one. I love winter for the fashion.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
And no rain.
But we've been having rain, so that really doesn't count. But generally, the cold weather, I don't do very well in cold weather. So, I feel your pain over this past weekend. What's coming up today?
Let's talk about important things.
Yeah.
So here's what's coming up this afternoon on the upside. We are talking about illegal drug center rehab centers. We are seeing quite a lot of them popping up. Over 103 of them have been identified as illegal. So these are spaces that they don't have the right professional counsel, the professional staff, nor are they treating the patients with the dignity and the care that is needed to help them get to a road to recovery. And we'll be talking to some experts and recovering addicts who have experienced both illegal and legal rehab facilities. And then we take you to Zanzibar with Faye Shayo, unlocking investment opportunities with a sea view. It's going to be an interesting one. They're encouraging people to buy properties seaside, buy land there. I don't know.
With what we've experienced and seen in terms of houses close to the sea. In KZN, we've seen it. So
I'm a bit skeptical about that one, but it sounds like an exciting opportunity. And then finally, we spotlight Vanessa Sekat. She's a cyber whiz kid, cyber security. She'll be introducing us to that career path and encouraging the youth, as it is the last day of Youth Month in South Africa. That's all coming up on the upside.
Well, something to look forward to from the top of the hour with Tebohole Kuleni. For myself, Lulu Gaboo, and the Africa Update team, it's been a good Monday. And thank you to our producer, Tracy Bumgard, our technical operator, Dumelo Mugwena, and social media, Elaine Bengani. Continue with us on our social media platforms and have a good one. Let's do this again tomorrow. Bye-bye.
In its own voices, English, Kiswahili, Chinyanja, French, and Portuguese. The languages that unite 1 billion people. We have been there through every shift, every milestone, and every triumph. Not just reporting history, but shaping the conversation. News.